The United States has carried out a fresh round of strikes in Iran as the number of American casualties grows. State media is reporting the U.S. hit several locations in southern Iran, including the country's only civilian nuclear plant. The U.S. military says a soldier was killed in northern Iraq on Saturday while detonating a downed Iranian drone. 2 other service members were killed in Jordan the previous day in an Iranian attack. This brings the total number of U.S. military personnel killed in the conflict to 17. Donald Trump says the recent U.S. strikes were carried out in their honor.
We hit him very hard again tonight, and we did that in honor of the probably 3 as opposed to 2 great patriots.
This morning, one vessel is on fire and adrift in the Strait of Hormuz. The UK's Maritime Trade Operations Agency says the ship was hit by an unknown projectile off the Omani coast. The crew has been rescued. Now, later, Iran's military claimed 2 oil tankers were blown up trying to transit the southern part of the strait. There's been no independent confirmation whether these 2 incidents are linked. And for more on this, we've reached Eric Loeb. He is an associate professor of politics and international relations at Florida International University, and he joins us from Miami. Good morning, Eric. Thank you so much for your time today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, Eric, put this into perspective for our viewers. We're seeing at least 1 ship on fire in the Strait of Hormuz this morning. Iran is claiming 2 more were hit as well. Meantime, Trump is linking the recent U.S. strikes directly to fallen service members. So is the U.S. still just defending itself, or are we looking at the start of something bigger here?
Well, basically for the past week, if not longer, we've been now in an escalation cycle or trap between the United States and Iran. And really at the core of this is a battle over the Strait of Hormuz, where the U.S. has been trying to transit ships through the southern corridor off the coast of Oman. The Iranians want permission for that to happen, and they want ships transiting through the northern corridor. They want to try to continue to assert control over the Strait of Hormuz. And so in response, we're seeing attacks from both sides against oil tankers and other commercial vessels, as well as against their military assets in the region, as well as Iran hitting back, as they've done throughout the war, at the military assets, but also increasingly civilian infrastructure in the Arab Gulf states. And so this is a continued pattern that we're seeing, and the escalation is going further, and we'll have to see if it can be contained or if it moves closer to all-out war.
And touching on that point, Eric, a little bit, I mean, we've heard from President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, with comments after this escalation cycle, as you called it, stop short of saying that this is really a return to full-scale war. Now, at what point does that claim become credible, given what we're seeing on the ground?
Well, there could be a silver lining here. I mean, right now, the diplomatic situation looks quite bleak, although neither side is completely ruling out a return to negotiations, even as the escalation continues. And it would appear that even if the escalation is rising as we speak, it is still being somewhat contained, and both sides seem hesitant for economic and political reasons to return to an all-out war that we saw between late February and early April. And we'll have to see if those incentives remain in place.
And Eric, a soldier died while trying to destroy a downed Iranian drone. Are we seeing a dangerous new tactic where downed drones are intentionally turned into traps for troops on the ground?
Well, I think basically what we're seeing happen is that as this escalation continues over the last week or so, we're seeing more and more military personnel dying on both sides, including civilians on the Iranian side, where we've seen dozens of Iranians killed, hundreds injured. And now the Iranians, through their drones and missiles, whether downed or used as explosive devices, are penetrating U.S. defenses and beginning to kill U.S. service members in Jordan, Iraq, and continuing to target U.S. assets in Kuwait, Bahrain, and elsewhere.
And Eric, along with the escalation of attacks, we've also heard an escalation of rhetoric. And what we've heard from a senior military official in Iran very recently is that no political border will be safe if the U.S. continues these attacks, that they're not going to do a tit-for-tat response. How should that statement be received?
Well, right now, it appears that the Iranians are responding in kind in a way that they see as proportional as the U.S. increases escalation, hitting not just Iranian military targets and assets, but also civilian ones, roads, bridges, airports, nuclear or energy sites, etc. The Iranians are responding in kind, hitting not just U.S. military installations in the region, but also civilian and energy infrastructure in the Arab Gulf states. And so right now, despite these statements by the Iranian officials, they seem to be trying to maintain this escalation and this conflict in some type of realm of proportionality for the time being.
And Eric, do you think the real damage to U.S. bases in the region could be worse than what's been reported to this point? The New York Times is reporting this morning that the Pentagon withheld dozens of U.S. military injuries to date.
Right. Well, this has been something that has been consistently reported throughout the conflict since late February, that there's been a lack of transparency among the Trump administration in terms of death, damage, and destruction to U.S. military assets and installations in the region. And even now, there are reports leaking that the damage could be worse to U.S. bases, that right now, officially, we have 16 or more U.S. service members killed and 400 to 500 more injured, but the numbers could be worse. And then what's even more concerning, based on reports by analysts and officials, is that the U.S. is continuing to deplete its stockpile of air defenses to be able to counter these Iranian missiles and drones.
All right, Eric Loeb, thank you so much for your insight this morning.
My pleasure.